What's happening, everybody? It's your girl, Tezlyn Figaro, here with REVOLT News. I'm excited to have somebody that I go way back with. A lot of you may not know. So excited to have Jemele Hill, the Jemele Hill. What's going on, girl?
I'm doing well. I don't know if I've earned the in front of my name yet, but I appreciate
girl,
it.
Please. We add the. Before we get to the conversation, I do want to talk about, because when I said people don't know, you and I met years ago in Orlando, Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you were working with Don Miller, and you
yes,
were
you know he loved you. Now you know. You know he loves you saying his name, by the way.
I'm sure he does. Don is the homie, but you were burning up the airwaves then, and it's just amazing watching your growth and your continued blossoming from afar. So I'm just so happy that a voice like yours is represented in media.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel the same about you. And we're going to get into that. You know, you have obviously been known, you know, on the sports side, the ESPN, always doing sports commentary. I've always, in fact, that's how Dawn introduced me. It's like she wanted the baddest in the game, the only one doing what she's doing. But then you got a spark in you along the way on politics. Now, I know a lot of people, you've probably told the story before, but just kind of introduce like what that was when you said, you know what, I'm gonna go a little bit hard on the politics side and basically take a chance and risk it all, if you will, to be able to say how you feel. Take us through that journey quickly before we get into what you're doing now.
So, I mean, essentially, it's like most citizens, I hope, is like I've always followed politics, and sports and politics have always intertwined. And there were times when I was writing about those intersections and didn't really realize it. But I think a lot of people probably first got introduced to my political interest through controversy, because when I was at ESPN in 2017, I made some comments about President Trump that went international, if you will. The White House called for me to be fired. President Trump attacked me as well, and it sort of led to me leaving ESPN because I saw that, one, I'd done everything that I ever could have thought I would have done at ESPN, so I felt like that chapter was closed, and two, I just felt like it was more chapters to be open in terms of me using my voice and me, you know, sort of really digging deep into those intersections, the messy ones between sports, politics, race, gender, and culture.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people, you know, a lot of us in our industry have been what they call, quote unquote, you know, blasted, trolls, canceled, articles written everywhere. But you dealt with it on a very, very, very high level. As you mentioned, the White House literally called for your job. I want to unpack that a little bit, Jemele, because right now we're in an era where people are not willing to give that level of sacrifice. You know, we see on social media, it's so easy to hide under a fake name and, you know, talk noise and say, oh, you know, I feel this way and feel that way. Talk a moment about what it means to truly risk it all. Like how did you get through that from a mental health standpoint of just having everybody coming at you? It's one thing to have the White House call and say, you know what, she shouldn't deserve a job. Talk a little bit about, you know, how that impacted you and your family, because I don't think people really realize that. We see so much on the media that people just think, oh, it's just a thing, but I've been through it, many of our colleagues have been through it, we have different levels that we've been through it, but talk a little bit about how that impacts, you know, you and your family.
So a lot of times you find yourself in those positions organically, and that's what happened with me. Like when I said those things about Trump and called him a white supremacist, I didn't honestly never thought it was going to blow up into being some kind of controversy. And I know people probably watching right now are thinking, what, are you kidding? Especially given that I was anchoring the 6 o'clock Sports Center at the time. But I really didn't. And when I found myself in the position having to really evaluate what I stood for, I realized I was willing to go 10 toes down for it. You know, a lot of us can say that when we're not in the situation. It's when you're in the situation that you know what you're about, right? And so the way I looked at it was this, is that at the end of the day, regardless of the job, the position, you know, money, I have to live with myself. And I said what I said, and I was willing to deal with whatever consequences kind of came with that. I wasn't going to take it back. I wasn't going to apologize for saying it. The only thing I ever apologized for was the position that I put the company in and a lot of my colleagues, because then they were forced to answer for me. You know, I can answer for myself, but they were often put in the position where they had to answer for why I said that or what that meant. And, you know, that's not their responsibility. That's mine. You know, in terms of my family, this is where it helps that you have people that are really down for you, and not down for you when it's convenient for them, and not down for you when things are going well for them, but down for you regardless of what the outcome is. So between my family, you know, he was my boyfriend and he's my husband now. Between
I know
that entire group, you know, and a lot of my friends in media. And I tell you really quickly, one very unexpected source of support was from a lot of professional athletes, and a lot of them were athletes I had never met or encountered. I mean, one I always use as an example is like Kevin Durant. Like, Kevin Durant spoke up for me. I don't even know Kevin Durant at all. LeBron James and I had we might have met in passing. I'm not entirely sure. He also spoke up on my behalf. Colin Kaepernick, again, at that point, Colin and I had met each other in passing, and these were three of the biggest athletes in America who all put their voice behind me. And there was a number of celebrities, and I really do think that support, especially from Black entertainers and sports figures, were a good reason, or a big reason, why I was able to leave ESPN on my own terms.
Mm-hmm. I said a couple of weeks ago that if I could write a book, it would be called, well, I've wrote a book, by the way, but if I could write another book, I would write one called How to Love, Partner, a Revolutionary. How to date, love, partner, be with. And you said something about your now husband, who was at the time your boyfriend. I want to get into that a little bit, Jemele, because revolutionaries that do, you know, the type of work that you do, I do, others do, that get thrown into the mix, like you said, it was just a comment and it blew all the way up. How, on whatever you're comfortable sharing with that, how has he been able to provide, I guess, some tips on how he was able to be a support system for you, to not just be your boyfriend, but also become your husband? A lot of times men just don't know what to do with women like you and me. Let's just go ahead and name it. They don't know what to do with us. The bottom line, they think because we so hard and so this and so that there's not a side that needs to be nurtured, that there's not ways that they can fill in gaps on our love language. Can you share, because can we help these brothers out just for a second?
Yeah, we
how,
can.
And each woman is different, but how
Right.
was he able to be supportive for you, you know, with having his woman in the spotlight, especially on something that was, you know, negative? How was he able to be supportive?
So I think early on, he sent a lot of relationship cues about the type of man, the type of person, and the type of partner that he was. And I liked him right away because he had a strong sense of who he was. And I remember one of the early tests for me, in terms of testing him, was the first year we really started dating and getting serious. I took him as my date with me to the ESPYs. Now, the ESPYs is ESPN's annual award show for athletes. Now, this is a star-studded event. We're talking about, you know, LeBron, the biggest athletes and celebrities in the game at this award show. And, of course, being someone who was on air, you know, I got all the VIP treatment and everything. So it's a different kind of environment. But I was curious as to how he would handle himself in this environment, because for a lot of men, it could be intimidating. The other side of it is that in groups of people like this that are this famous, you know, folks can be extra. They can be on some, like, you know, fanboy stuff. Like, I didn't, you know, you don't want to take somebody into these kind of situations and they wind up embarrassing you, right?
Right.
But he was himself. He was super comfortable. And we had a blast. And that's when I knew. I was like, yep, this is exactly what I had been looking for. So I knew those cues early on. He has a lot of integrity. He has a lot of character. And because of that, I knew that whenever I faced a crisis, or just in terms of supporting me, that he would never let me down, and he never has. And he also understood that while I'm never fake or a different person when I'm sitting here talking to you or on anybody else's airwaves or show, I'm not a different person, but that is just something I do. It's not necessarily who I am. There's parts of who I am in it because I really believe what I'm saying. I'm passionate about the things that I talk about. But, you know, when I get home and we're in we're with each other. Like I'm not trying to play TV host. Like I'm not trying to play debater or like I want to be loved on,
Right.
Nurtured, supported. He understands that about me is that vulnerability is something I've always kind of struggled with, but he understands kind of how to bring it out of me. And it makes me really like the best kind of version of myself. And even when I went through that stuff, he listened. He's a tremendous listener. That's the other part. And I realized that for women like us who are passionate, who are strong, that people assume that's the entire persona, and he knew that wasn't that there was all there was to me. And he also knows that like sometimes I could be on one. And
Right.
he understands how to handle that part as well. So he gets these dynamics and these complicated parts about me. And I would just say to men out there who sometimes get caught up in being needed by a woman as opposed to wanted by a woman. That's like a whole different conversation that we could probably open up on this show.
That's right, because
Yeah, because I follow you on social media, so I know some of the thoughts that you had, and it's like, a lot of men need to just sort of slightly alter or reprogram because, yes, women are in society, we're able to make our own money. We're in some areas we're outpacing them in terms of education. Like this is a reality, and I think some men have struggled to find their place, but they don't understand what need looks for us now versus what it looked like for our mothers. For our mothers and our grandmothers, need was very literal. It was like need to provide house, need to provide car, need to provide things that are very material. For a lot of women out there who are navigating these corporate shark-infested waters, what we need most is safety, emotional safety and security. And that is what my husband provides for me, emotional safety and security. When I'm in our house and when we're together, I know I can let everything down. I'll be out here like I'm the Dora Milaje in Wakanda, trying to say Wakanda, the democracy and everything. I don't have to do all that. I can come home and literally not make decisions. Like, I don't have to do that.
Yes.
He is perfectly capable of leading. I mean, he is in charge of our household. I don't know how nothing work around here.
And that's what men, and I wasn't trying to change no relationship episode, but it is what it is. Because I'm telling you, I really want to know, like, what was Fannie Lou Hamer's husband like? Perry Hamer. What was Shirley Chisholm's husband like? What were, we learn a lot about, the Corettas and the Betty Shabazz and what does it mean to be the first lady of a pastor. But I don't think there's enough conversation about to be the first man, like to a woman that they have totally wrong. Like when you said, I want to come home and I want to think about nothing. Like I think there's I know it is a big misconception with those of us on this microphone and not understanding. No, we actually really want to be quiet for real at home. We actually
for real.
I actually don't want to debate with you. I really don't want you to talk about politics for real. And there's a big, well, maybe we need to gather the men at some point, Jemele, and maybe they can give some tips, on what it means to support and actually have the nurturing that you talk about. Because I'll say this, it's not even just a want, it's a need. For me, pouring in so much into the world, I need you. Let me say it again. I need you to pour into me with words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch. But that wasn't what this is about. But I just wanted to ask
but what you said, is super real. It's like the moment I look forward to every day is coming home, us being in bed, watching some of our favorite silly shows, whether it be Raising Kanan, whether it be like a number, Love
like
and Hip
me,
Hop.
American Dad, girl, I'll be watching.
See what I'm saying?
Cleveland Brown. Like people like, I can't believe, yes, Cleveland Brown, Golden Girls. I know you're a big Golden Girls fan.
I love Golden Girls. Yes,
Golden Girls,
those
Cleveland Brown,
moments.
American Dad. Yes.
You see what I'm saying? Those are the moments we, below deck, like us, especially the reason we vacation so hard is. Because it's our opportunity to not just reconnect and get away, but to be kind of in our own little cocoon. My husband knows I love the beach and I love warm weather and I love just sitting there on the beach and doing absolutely nothing. And so he does everything possible to make I think work-life balance is a bit of a misnomer because, let's be honest, it's never going to be 50-50. But I remember
Right.
something my yoga teacher once said, which was, give me 100% of your 10%. So on that vacation, I have set very firm boundaries around his birthday, our anniversary, my birthday. I am not to be disturbed. Leave me alone. I'm not answering nothing. I'm not doing nothing. Those are the walled off times. And because I can do that and commit that 100% of those 3 times a year, it is super rejuvenating for our marriage, for our relationship. And through that, it refills both of us. So it's just like the other person just understanding what it is that fills your cup. I try to pour into him and fill his cup as much as possible. But best believe, it's certainly like I think you started this question about like how it impacts the person and the people around you. Certainly as I was going through my thing, with the Trump administration, and even as I speak out now, my husband's in corporate America. I mean, he has colleagues he has to work with, colleagues who see me on TV. And so what I definitely don't want to do is make what I say and do harder for him in the line of work that he is in. Now, his colleagues have never said anything bad about me or anything like that. But I would imagine just on human nature, I'm sure within his company, there are some whispers, there's some conversation about like, hey, do you know who his wife is? And blah, 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 blah. And so that's something that I also have to keep in mind as I present myself in this space.
Yeah. Well, I want to bring you back to talk about that, or we need to talk about something. I don't know, call me or something, girl, because those are the kind of things that we don't talk about in these interviews that I think is really needed. The podcasts, typical conversations about relationships, we got to relearn some stuff because we are going through a time where we need each other more than ever, and our tribes are critically important. Black love is critically important. How we manage our relationships, boyfriends, marriage, whatever is critically important. So thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. Before we close, I want to talk about why you're actually here, which is tell us about the new podcast. 'Cause apparently you haven't learned to be quiet yet. They done told you to be quiet.
I have not.
The White House
my
told
lesson.
you to be quiet. You still talking. You ain't learned no lesson yet. You just keep on showing. Keep on. Mama got to keep coming to the school once again, talking to the principal once again, like my mother did on a weekly basis. Tell us about the new podcast that you got going on.
So the new podcast is called Spolitics. It's available on iHeart or wherever you get your podcast. Also, you can see it on my YouTube page as well. But, there has been this narrative, and the narrative only persists because of who is speaking up, that sports and politics aren't supposed to mix, right? But as I say on my show, sports and politics not only mix, they matter. And for those who don't think that they mix or are really hesitant about that relationship, when you go to a sporting event, that arena, that stadium is funded by who? The taxpayers. It's something that has to be voted on. So the minute that you decide to go see a sporting event, to some degree, you're engaging in a political act. The military flyovers, those are all political. There's legislation right now that they're trying to introduce that will impact NCAA athletes in terms of impacting how they have been able to empower themselves through name, image, and likeness. And there is legislation right now that might shut a lot of that down. So politics has always been in sports, whether we're talking about Jackie Robinson integrating Major League Baseball in 1947, 20 years before we got the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, or even if you want to take it all the way back to George Washington, when he used to throw parties and get his constituents drunk and play games just to get them to vote. The only thing that changed the narrative about where sports and politics belong is when black athletes started using their agency to speak up to the conditions that their people were going through, and they used the sports platform to do it. And then a lot of people got really upset because they didn't want to be reminded. They just wanted to be entertained. And so it's just funny how in sports we tend to judge whether or not the sports or the politics parts of it belongs based off whether or not we agree. And so I just wanted a podcast at a space dedicated to some of those tough conversations we saw recently what the Department of Defense did related to Jackie Robinson and trying to erase his military history. So again, it's always all around us. So I just wanted a platform to be able to discuss these issues with some breadth, some nuance, and some entertainment.
Well, I love to talk to you more about organizing and how it is absolutely sports, because and I love that you're tackling with all of the issues. But let's come back and talk about even further, like what role do you play in the game? Are you a frontliner? Are you the Michael Jordan? Are you on the bench? And if you're on the bench, you still got a role to play. Like you need to be doing something, cheering, something, coming up with a different play. I love using sports metaphors. And how do we change it up? You know, when the political climate has, girl, you see me, I'm doing these metaphors, ain't
I see you doing it. I'm impressed.
I don't know sports like you, but there's so many different metaphors. Yeah, and like shoot at something, you know.
Well, you know, to your point, and we could get into this in a deeper conversation at a later time, but right now, as we see the attacks on diversity, equity, inclusion across campuses nationwide, one of the nerve centers is sports because you know, if we want to talk about organizing, the part they don't want to lose is sports. So if you can imagine what resistance by Black athletes at these institutions that have decided that they want to bow out of inclusiveness, bow out of equity, you wonder what could potentially be the role of Black athletes in getting some of these universities to change or at least reconsider what they've done, because I'm telling you it could be pretty powerful.
I want to unpack that more. There's so many sports metaphors I use. Like, for example, people that love telling us what to do from the comments. They're in the stand. You know, not one time has Michael Jordan turned around and said, what y'all think I should do? Right. Not one time. So I appreciate the comments, but I need you in the game. I need you in the huddle. I need you on the side. Be a water boy, water girl. Do something besides just sitting in the stands and telling me what I should and should not be doing, because I have to focus on the game and moving the ball. So hopefully we can talk about that more. I done used up all your time, but I knew this was going to be a conversation that we were going to go more into. When does this, where can, I guess they get, I know you said on iHeart or anywhere they get their podcast, how often do you drop content, Jemele, so they can know how to find you?
Every Thursday, a new episode drops. The one that's currently up is I sat down with comedian Roy Wood Jr., host of CNN, you know, somebody else who's involved in politics, hosted the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And Roy, you know, he keeps it funny and he keeps it real. So I think people will enjoy listening to that.
Thank you for your time, your vulnerability, talking about so many different topics. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I would love to talk to you more. Pull up on us in Atlanta. Certainly would love to come to your show. And let's talk about organizing and how we play the game. Thank you for all that you've done. You've always been acknowledged and admired for being not just a woman in sports, but a Black woman in sports. And that's important, that actually knows the game. But besides gender and besides race, you still know your shit, and that's important. So thank you for being here, sis. I appreciate you, and hopefully I can see you soon.
All right, take care.
Thank you.